Welcome to English 3E. This is class 20. We are on week 6, and we are just working through the last bits of unit 3. The unit we're working on is this. We're at the very end of this. Here are all the different ways to reach me. I'm in the studio right now, 1-800-465-7144. At the WASA office, 1-800-667-3703. You can fax your work to 1-800-463-7852. You can email me questions at jillian.percy@nnecschools.org. If you want to rewatch a recording, it is on YouTube, capital GPERCY space capital WAHSA. Okay, so we're going to talk about prepositions a little bit. Prepositions are a word or a group of words used before a noun or a pronoun or a noun phrase in order to show direction, time, place, location, spatial relationships, or to introduce an object. It's basically being used to connect the group of words at the end to the rest of the sentence and indicate their relationship to each other. So for example, Jack went over the bridge. Over is the preposition in front of the bridge. It's connecting the word bridge to the verb went and explaining that he went over the bridge as compared to under or on top of or beside. Some other examples of prepositions are words like in, at, on, of, and to. Prepositions can indicate different types of relationships. Some prepositions will show time or when something happens. Other prepositions will show place and location, where someone or something is located. It can show direction or movement, often used with verbs that are showing motion. Agent, it can show the agent or who did the action. It can be used for instrumentation to show the instrument or a tool that's being used to do something. Manner, it can show how or the way something's being done. Purpose, it can show the reason or the purpose of something. And possession, it can show ownership or possession. Source or origin, it can show the source or origin of something or someone. We're not going to get to all of these today, but we're going to discuss some of them today. Possessive prepositions show ownership or belonging. For example, the car was given to her. Who does it belong to? Her. This gift is for Dad. The house was built by my grandfather. The textbooks belong to the school. I am a leader in the group. I have a membership with the club. She made it on the cheerleading team. Okay, so some of these show ownership, like her or dad. Some of them show they belong. They belong to this school, belong to that group, that club, that team. Okay, so we use these all the time. We just often aren't aware of them. The thing is, in English, sometimes we tend to want to get rid of these small ones, in part because not all languages use these. So like, for example, in some languages, if I said the car was given to her, that's totally acceptable. But in English, it's not. You have to show the preposition or the relationship. So that's just one thing to be aware of and mindful that it's a little bit different than other languages. Oop, getting a bit of a ringing in my ear. Not sure what that is there. Huh. Okay, there are also prepositions of time. Some of the prepositions for time are during, for, until or till, since, the pair from and to, ago, before, by, after, to, past, and the pair between and the one within. I'm just going to move. I don't know if you guys can see this little thing. I know sometimes it shows up as a bar. Let me think. Prepositions of time. All right. Let me see if you guys are able to hear this.
ESL Library.
Oh, so far not yet. Hang on a second. Did I forget something?
Prepositions of time.
Ah.
What are prepositions? Are words.
Oh, that is a shame. I could have sworn. And I'm just going to check my screen share because I could have sworn I picked. Yeah, I'm supposed to be sharing the sound. Okay, well, we will skip over that. Prepositions of time. So we're done with prepositions of time, and we will go on to the next one. Oh, okay. So prepositions of time. I've got some examples here. Let me pull that down. Something winter, the snow will be deep. In winter, on winter, or since winter. Well, for us, we would say in winter, not on because you're not on anything. And since would imply something's happened. So that won't quite happen. Plus, we've got will, and since is kind of a past tense word. I always go camping something the summer. I go camping to the summer, at the summer, or during. During because it implies like a length of time. It's not happening once, it's happening over a course of time. He likes to work out, blank, he goes to work. Since he goes to work? No, because that would imply a reason. At he goes to work? Nope. Before works. It is 10 minutes from 3. It is 10 minutes ago 3. It is 10 minutes to 3. We have to use to. From, you could argue that it makes sense, but it isn't conventional usage. School starts something 9 o'clock. Since 9 o'clock, during 9 o'clock, or at 9 o'clock. At, definitely, right? You will get your check in the mail, blank, 10 business days. Ago 10 business days, before 10 business days, or within 10 business days. I would say within. Before, it's kind of a, doesn't quite make sense there. It's only been 3 weeks, blank, I started chemo. Since I started chemo, before I started chemo, or for I started chemo. Since works really well here because it's talking about something that happened in the past. They started the chemo and it's showing duration, right? I'm going to grab a nap, blank, half an hour. During half an hour, for half an hour, until half an hour. I'm going to argue that for is the correct one for that. All right, let's see the next one. Prepositions of location. These are some of the most common ones. And in fact, when I tend to think of prepositions, these are what I usually think of. Words like in, on, at, by, near, nearby, above, below, over and under, up and down, around and through, inside, outside, between, beside, beyond, in front of, in back of, behind, next to, on top of, within, beneath, underneath, among, along, and against. This is not all of them. By all means, there's more. You could also see it's common to have prepositional phrases like in front of. It just count, those are all like, they all count as a prepositional phrase together there. So in these sentences, the preposition would usually be followed by the article the and a noun. And there's an assumption that both the speaker and the listener would understand what object is being referred to. So for example, if it says, the keys are on the table, both people know which table the keys are normally on. The bread is behind the milk. The rake is against the shed. The garden hose is around back of the house. The ketchup should be between the mustard and the mayo. That we use the instead of a because the is a demonstrative word, and it's kind of, it goes along with us showing a specific location. You can't drop it. In English, you can't say the keys are on table. I don't know the reason behind it. I just know with English, nouns, specifically singular nouns, would need to have a, an, or the with them, or it's considered ungrammatical. On a more slangy level, it will just sound wrong to people if you don't remember to use the article the there. Oh, here is like a little picture of things, and we're putting things in location here. My favorite room in the house is the kitchen. The oven is something, 2 cabinets. Well, there's 2 cabinets and there's the oven. So there, it's below it or beneath it. Is that one of my choices? Below, I've got below. I'm going to grab that and put that over here. Something, the left cabinet, there is a blender. Okay, so here's my blender on top of, maybe on will work. On the left cabinet there is a blender. Something the blender, there is an open cabinet. Okay, well, there's no cabinet there, but above it, it's filled with a microwave, but it's not like it hasn't got doors, which I think is what they mean by closed. So something above the blender. Sorry, we got that above. Oops, hang on. Above the blender, there is an open cabinet. Something this cabinet, there is a microwave. So in or inside, I'd say inside, because it's actually it's in a box like kind of thing. So I wouldn't just say in. To me, it seems like more like inside. On the right side of the cabinet with the microwave, there are 3 other cabinets, the second of which has jars. Okay. I'm gonna have to change it and say inside here, and I guess in here. To me, they both work well with inside. I don't know why they didn't use it for both. Something in the last cabinet, there is another cabinet with the sink. Below the last cabinet, here it is. There's the sink. Below, behind, between, in front of. I'll come back to that one. There's another cabinet with the sink. Beside it, near it, in front of it. I would say inside again. Something the last I wonder if we're allowed to use inside more than once. I just made one of them there. Maybe we're allowed to use inside more than once. Okay. Blank, the last cabinet, there is the fridge and something. Oh, and something the fridge is like next to the fridge. The last cabinet, there is the fridge. Beside the last cabinet, there is a fridge, and something the fridge, there is a window. And near the fridge, there is a window. You could also say next to. Something the window, there is a table. In front of, I think. In front of the window, there is a table. There are 2 chairs something the table. There are 2 chairs behind the table. Okay. And another 2 on each side of the table. And from the window, I can see the trees that are outside. So at some point I was supposed to use the word between. So you can see it's not a perfect science, and there is some room for discussion. There's more than one that would be acceptable. Okay. Prepositions of measurement. The most common ones are at, by, for, to, and of. And remember that measurement is just not how long something is. We can measure time or money, weight, mass, temperature. We can be really exact, like say run to the 1 mile mark, or we can also be estimating or approximate, like we need about 5 pounds of potatoes. So here are some examples of prepositions of measurement. I want a pound of butter. You were the winner by a few seconds. Get 2 burgers for $10. Newborns often weigh between 6 to 10 pounds. Both the between and the to, they're both prepositions. I want to buy a meter of green cotton. Prepositions of agency. It sounds so formal, doesn't it? It really just means who it's been done by. So it's often used in a passive voice. For example, the house was built by a famous architect. He dug the hole with a backhoe. There's some crossover between this and some of the other types of prepositions. Prepositions of origin, they tell you where something was built or manufactured or what country you're born in. So those 2 are from and of. The pot is made of copper. He is from Norway. Instrument prepositions indicate what tool or what instrument did the job. He hit the nail with the hammer. He wrote his novel on the computer. The computer is the tool there. The car runs on electricity. She traveled via the subway, kind of a fancy word not used all that often, but it's there. The wood is held together by screws. The sound waves are carried through the wires. He finished the painting with a palette knife. So all those are some examples of prepositions that are indicating what instrument you're using to do something. All right, so here's some review of agency, origin, instrument, and measurement. The book was written something Nora Roberts. For Nora Roberts, by Nora Roberts, or because of, I would say by her. It's an agency one. He fixed the door something duct tape, with duct tape, by duct tape, or for duct tape. Definitely with. With is a really common one for instruments. He is originally blank the Ukraine. He is originally to the Ukraine, from the Ukraine, or like the Ukraine. Definitely from, because it's showing his origin, where he's from. All the animation was completed blank computer, to computer, by computer, or as computer. Now, this is one of those weird exceptions. I could say all the animation was completed by computer, but then it sounds as if the computer did it rather than that the computer was a tool. So here, computer is kind of the tool. It's still a noun. It's an oddball one. The solo in the song was done blank flute. From flute, to flute, with flute. You can see it's coming up again. I'm not sure why in this case we're not needing the articles, but it's not. You could say with the flute, but with flute is also okay too for that. The cars were shipped something Germany. Well, origin, right away you can see it's the one about from, right? The moment you start seeing countries, you're looking at origin most of the time. The temperature dipped something 0 degrees, from 0 degrees. Now, that would be possible if you're talking about now it's lower, to 0 degrees, or with 0 degrees. So I would say to, and here's a preposition of measurement here. Please get 2 pounds blank steak, with steak, of steak, or for steak. And that would be another measurement, and it's of steak. My doctor's appointment was blank 2:30, from 2:30, at 2:30, with 2:30, definitely at. All right. And unfortunately, we didn't get to see the little tube. I don't know why it's not letting me play stuff. You know what? I'm going to just check and see really quick if it is. Maybe there's just a chance that I'm not quite hearing things too. Oh, you know what? I think I didn't. Hang on. Let me see if I can do it. I remember one time it depended on where.
This is the freedom to bank with us anytime, anywhere. Download the app today.
Fluffies.
All right, I'm going to try one more thing just to see if it works. Mainly because I'm being really stubborn. I apologize. Let me see if I put it up top, if it works instead. But that was an issue one time. All right, well, I will try and sort out what mistake I made there because I'm sure I did something wrong that made that not work. My apologies. Okay, oh no, this is this week's. We've been slowly kind of working on this. There was the reading about Don't Give Up on the Media on page 122, 123 in our textbooks called Making It Work. And then there are the assignments that go along with it. We talked about number 12 yesterday, and we're going to talk about 13 today. I'm not sure if we'll get to 14 or not. And then next week we'll talk about the culminating activity for these. Let me see here. Oh, you absolutely have to make sure you read this article before we do the next assignment, or it just won't quite work. So the next assignment is, many people say there is too much violence on TV. What is your opinion or your thoughts or your feelings on this topic? In your response, comment on whether or not violence affects you or others, especially children and young adults, in any way. So one paragraph containing at least 6 sentences, and they're giving you 8 marks. I would say probably you want to do more than 6 sentences, but that's just me. So what kind of writing this is? We've done a lot of summaries. It is not a summary, right? They are asking for your opinion. So you have to state what you think about this topic and then state why. It's not enough just to say something like, I think it's bad. I think it's okay. I think it's fine. You have to give reasons in this kind of writing, okay? And even if you have an opinion but haven't thought about your reasons, in order to do this kind of writing, you're going to have to think about your reasons or even make some up because you have to have something to write about. Okay, hang on a second. Okay, so whenever you're doing writing, you have to spend a little bit of time first doing some brainstorming. So right now, our brainstorming is about A, what's our opinion? What do you think? First of all, what do you think constitutes too much violence? So when we're talking about there's too much violence on TV, do you have a mental limit for you of what you feel is an appropriate level of violence? Or is there no limit? Like, is there never a spot where you'd think it was too much? Does it matter how graphically the violence is portrayed? For example, if the violence is done off screen, but just implied, or if it's lots of visuals of blood, guts, and gore. I would also say you might want to think about, does it matter what kinds of shows, like who the audience is? Does it matter if there's violence in shows that our children are going to watch or teens? Or like, do you have a differentiation between what you're going to watch versus what the kids are going to watch, right? Whether they're your kids or, your niece or nephew or whatever. Do you think that watching violence on TV affects you? What about other people? Do you think it affects children or teenagers, elders? Do you think it can affect people who are drunk or high? What about people who are mentally ill, like really severe mental illness? I don't mean depression. I mean like things like schizophrenia or paranoia or things like that. Do you think it can affect men or women, like one or the other? The article about Don't Give Up on Media discusses that a little bit, that there's a bit of a gender response to violence. What about marginalized people, people who aren't necessarily represented by the majority? Do you think violence can affect them more or less? Can you think of examples of times when you did think violence affected others? Violence on TV may have affected others. This could be things like real violence, such as the Columbine shooting, or fictional violence. Now, these are big topics. I don't mean obviously in the Columbine shooting, obviously it did affect others. I mean, did seeing the violence affect others in like a negative way? All right, not just from feeling sad, but like, did it encourage other people to do that kind of activity, basically? All right. So hopefully you're kind of thinking about this, brainstorming, writing down any ideas. This is not your rough draft, okay? This is just your ideas. It's like you're gathering up all the ingredients to try and make your rough draft. Right now, you're just thinking about your ideas before you start writing it, okay? I found this lovely little meme that kind of explained what I wanted to talk about. As you were brainstorming, did your opinion change? Keep your mind open to change all the time. Welcome it, court it. It is only by examining and re-examining your ideas and opinions that you can progress. So sometimes we may have an initial opinion on something, but as we examine it more thoroughly, we begin to think differently on the topic. And that's great. If this happens, take a few minutes to brainstorm from this new point of view more thoroughly so that you have enough material to write your paragraph from. Like maybe when you started, you thought, no, I don't think violence affects people. And then as you were thinking about it, you changed your mind. Or you go the other way. Maybe you're thinking, yeah, it definitely affects it. And you're like, I don't know, maybe it's necessarily the TV. This brainstorming is like the ingredients in your kitchen. It's hard to cook if you only have a few ingredients, or if you just kind of dive in and then find out part way that you're missing crucial elements. So if you just start writing your rough draft right away, sometimes it's really hard to do because you're trying to like think about spelling and think about phrasing all at the same time as thinking about your ideas. Whereas if you take the time to do the brainstorming first, then you've got like all your ingredients ready, and it's so much easier to write a rough draft once you've done that. So taking the time to gather up your ideas into one place can really, really, really make the writing process go so much more smoothly. All right. What are the strongest arguments or reasons to support your opinion? You may have generated a lot of reasons for your opinions. Which ones do you think would be the most convincing to other people? And which ones can you back up or support with facts or with examples that would confirm that opinion? So I'm going to do it with a different topic just to kind of show you what I mean. I can't do it with your topic because that would just be giving you all the answers. So here's a different topic that people might have an opinion on. Children should not start school until they're 7 years old. This is actually something some people think that it's better for kids to start school later. Possible reasons this might be a good idea. It would help with the obesity crisis in youth, if students could be outside running around instead of being forced to sit all day. Many students are not developmentally ready for learning through reading and writing until later on. It would give students in second language homes more time to learn their first language. There's lots of evidence that shows that children who start school earlier are more aggressive. It would cut down on education costs by eliminating the first 3 years of school. It would encourage more play-based environments. It could help kids keep off screens more. There would be less emphasis on conformity because you're not in the big group of people. And it might give kids more time to learn self-control in small groups before doing it in big groups. So which one of these, I got a lot of ideas. I'm not going to write about all of them, there's not enough room. Which of the ideas would be most convincing to others? And which of these ideas do I have facts or examples to support my ideas? So looking at these, I think this one is a pretty strong one. I think making kids sit around all day is really not helping anybody's health at all. I do think this is true, but I would have to kind of look things up to make sure that I could prove it. So I'm going to leave that one for right now. Give students in a second language home more time to learn their language. Lots of evidence shows that children who start school earlier are more aggressive. Now, I know there are some studies that show this. I don't know if they're still valid. I would have to look it up. I'm not going to use it for this paragraph because I don't want to look a bunch of things up. Would cut down on education costs by eliminating the first 3 years of school. I think it's true. I don't know how compelling an argument it is. Would encourage more play-based environments. Well, it might or it might not. Could help keep kids off screens more, maybe. Maybe. It might give kids more time to learn self-control. So I've got 4 there. The other one that I keep coming back to is thinking about this one. For this one, I think I could handle it without showing studies. Everybody knows kids that were in kindergarten or even grade 1 and didn't necessarily learn how to read, and yet later on learned how to read just fine. I think sometimes we're pushing reading too soon, and then it makes people frustrated if they're not really ready for it. So those are my possible ones that I could argue about. All right, what did I choose? I chose help reduce obesity, more time with first language, help reduce aggression, not all students developmentally ready or at 4, hang on a second, or really 3.5, right? Because if you have a birthday before December, lots of kids are entering and they're not 4 yet. They're like 3 3/4 maybe, and they're young. I don't know if you've seen the little ones that go to junior kindergarten. They're so tiny at that stage. And some of them are just, I don't think anyways, always ready for school. Okay. So you would do the same thing. You would think of all your reasons for what you think about violence, and then you would pick which ones do you think you could talk more about. If you think something is true, like I might think something that is true, like less emphasis on conforming, but I don't know what I would have to say about that. So even though I think it's true, I don't have a lot to back it up with. So I'm not going to choose that one. So try to make sure you're choosing ones that you think you can talk more about. So for example, helping to reduce obesity. Okay, let me see what I've got here. Push this down here. Being forced to sit still in school the majority of the day contributes to the growing obesity problems. Many schools may have gym only a couple of times a week or may eliminate recess. Keeping them out of school gives them more opportunities to move. Okay. More time with first language. Let's see here. Many students are being forced to learn English rather than developing their first language skills. English first is contributing to the demise of many languages all the way around the world. Okay. Help reduce aggression. Lots of studies showing that students who went to daycare sooner were more aggressive. Overcrowding leads automatically to higher rates of aggression as children's space is invaded or ignored. Again, I'm not positive I would use this one. It would be nice to be able to quote a study, but it's there. I might use it. We'll think about it. Not all students are developmentally ready at 4 or 3.5. Although we've mandated or said that kindergartens have to be play-based in Ontario, not all of them really are. Part of that is because there's some confusion over what play-based kindergarten means. Teachers aren't trained in early childhood development. That's covered by early childhood education. And it really is a different thing, teaching 3-year-olds versus 6-year-olds. There's all sorts of information on early childhood development that just isn't taught to teachers because it's just not considered relevant. Asking students to do things that they aren't ready for and literally cannot do yet contributes to frustration and self-hatred at a very young age, which is not healthy. Okay, so I think I've got enough here to start a rough draft. I might skip the argument about aggression because I don't have the studies in front of me, so it's harder to back up. So this is still really my pre-writing. I haven't made the rough draft. So I've done a whole bunch of work before I even got to the rough draft. But the thing is, doing all that is going to make that rough draft go so much smoother. The other thing is, I sometimes find the hardest part about a rough draft is thinking about the opening sentence for a paragraph. So sometimes I spend a bit of time auditioning or thinking about different opening sentences to make sure that I've got a good one. So here are some possible opening sentences to this paragraph. One solution to the many problems we are seeing in schools is to delay kids starting school until they are 7 years old. That's okay. Starting school at 7 years old would eliminate so many problems we see in school and society. Well, a bit vague, but maybe. I believe that keeping kids out of school until they are at least 7 years old is a healthier alternative to our current system. I do like that one. Allowing kids to stay home until they are 7 years old gives children time to develop healthy bodies, more self-control, better first language skills, and is more developmentally appropriate. I feel like that's a good one for either beginning or for ending with, because I think it really summarizes things nicely. I'm inclined to say the end. What did I use? Okay, I use this one. I believe that keeping kids out of schools until they're at least 7 years old is a healthier alternative to our current system. I like it because it's not overstating the case and the emphasis on healthy. So this is my rough draft. I haven't edited it yet for spelling, for punctuation or grammar. I haven't revised sentence structure or clarity. So there's all sorts of problems. I haven't fixed them yet, okay? So we're gonna read it and then we'll do a quick check and then we'll go on to our revising, okay? A lot of times the rough draft can be quick. Sometimes people are spending so much time on the rough draft, they don't want to redo the good draft. But if you do the pre-writing and think about things, the rough draft can go quick and then you can spend more time on the revising, which is kind of what works better really. So I believe that keeping kids out of schools until they are at least 7 years old is a healthier alternative to our current system. First of all, many kids will not be developmentally or emotionally ready to be away at 4 years old, really 3.5 years old for lots of students. If you had seen the tears or the anxiety of some children at being forced into a room full of strangers, you might not think it was such a great idea. Many students need their first language at home before they learn English at school. Unless it is an immersion school, students from all kinds of different language are being forced to give up their first language in order to develop their English better to talk with teachers and other students. Finally, it would also help stop the growing obesity problems our children are facing these days. For one thing, they wouldn't have to sit still for 6 hours a day. And for another, they wouldn't be so bored that they want video games when they get done. And in the wintertime, they'd have time to play outside in the sunlight on these short winter days. Allowing kids to stay home until they're 7 years old gives children time to develop healthy bodies, more self-control, better first language skills, and is more developmentally appropriate. Okay, so quick checklist before I do anything else. Does my rough draft include an opening topic sentence? Yes, it does. Does it include a closing sentence that restates the topic? Yep. So here's my opening topic. Hang on. Let's see here. Yep. All right, so I'm just going to underline it so you can kind of see it or highlight it here. Down here is my closing sentence. And have I got at least 7 sentences? And I find that the quickest way to do this is just count how many periods you have. Even if those periods aren't at the right spot, it still gives you a rough idea. Now remember, periods, not lines. A sentence is not the same thing as a line. So here's 1 period. No, up here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So yep, I've got at least 7 sentences. So I'm not really, that's my rough copy. That's good. I can hand that in as a rough copy, but I need to make some changes before I do it as a good copy. Some warning signs in the rough draft. These are things that I'm looking for, and they will cause you to lose marks if I see them. Hang on a second. Okay. If you used jot notes rather than sentences, that is not your rough draft. That is your pre-writing. If you made a list rather than a paragraph, the rough draft has to be in paragraph format. If you didn't follow the paragraph format, for example, you didn't have an opening sentence, details in the middle, and then a closing sentence, that's the thing to be concerned about. If it's not long enough for the assignment, if it's supposed to be a page and you only write half a page, that's a problem. Off topic, right? If you're supposed to write about violence and you choose to write about, say, birth control, I can't really easily mark it because you haven't talked about the topic you're supposed to be talking about. Wrong format goes back to the assignment thing. Like if instead of writing an opinion, you read a news article and wrote a summary, that would be a problem. Paragraph is one long run-on sentence. That does happen. I find some people are just doing commas everywhere and only putting a period at the end of the paragraph. If you've written for half a page and there's only one sentence, one period, there's a problem. Okay. So those are the things I'm looking for when I'm looking at the rough draft. Okay. So here's my still same rough draft. I haven't done anything to it yet. Now that I know that it's got the basics of what I wanted, now I can go through and start to revise. Okay. So I'm going to revise as you guys watch to try and give you an idea of the thought process. I'm going to be talking out loud as I do this because it's really hard to understand what people are like, how they're making the decisions. Often you're just seeing like, here's my jot notes, here's the final copy. And there's so little, similarity between the two. It just seems like magic. So I'm trying to break it down and show you all the little tiny mini decisions that go into making a better piece of writing. Okay. So first of all, I want to check, are my ideas clear and understandable? I thought so, but I'm going to reread just kind of quietly to myself and think about it. I think it's reasonably good. The only thing I was thinking about is the part about unless it's an immersion school. Because immersion schools are usually based on one language, and I'm talking about different languages. So I don't know if I might want to get rid of that immersion school thing. I'm going to think about that for a few minutes. The BC problem makes sense. The video thing I think makes sense. Playing outside. I think my ideas make sense. I think so. Do I have incomplete sentences or run-on sentences? So, well, first of all, how could I even tell? How would I know? Well, first of all, look for, does every sentence have a subject, an obvious subject? Like you should be able to tell me, yep, I know who this sentence is about, or I know what the sentence is about. And what's happening to the who, or what are you telling me about the what? I don't find most people have a problem with incomplete sentences for the most part. What I do find is a lot of people will do run-on sentences. So if you've already seen the subject, who or what it's about, and they've done something, that's one whole sentence. That's the end of that. You don't need to keep on going and going and going. Those are probably new sentences. Okay, so I'm going to go through and just make sure that I don't have any run-on sentences and incomplete, but I know for myself, I tend more towards run-on sentences. Okay, I believe that keeping kids out of schools until they're at least 7 years old is a healthier alternative to our current system. Okay, so I is the subject. I believe something, and here is my belief that keeping kids out of schools until they are, I'm going to just say 7, I'm going to shorten that, until they are 7 years old is a healthier alternative to our current system. Yeah, it's not a run-on sentence. It's just one long belief system. I don't think I could make it any shorter without making it not make sense. First of all, okay, so that's a little introductory phrase. I've got a comma there, no problem. Many kids, there's my topic. Verb will not be, there's my verb, developmentally or emotionally ready to go away at 4 years old. I'm going to say, I don't like this part. It's not quite a run-on, but it makes the sentence a bit tricky to read. So I'm going to say ready to go away at 3.5 to 4 years old. That seems to make a little more condensed sentence there. If you had seen the tears or anxiety of some children at being forced into a room full of strangers. Okay, so all that is a subordinating clause. It's long, but it's still legitimate. You might not think it was such a great idea. That's legitimate. I might turn it around and say, put the subject first, but I think I'm okay with leaving that the way it is. Many students, there's my subject. Here's my verb, need their first language at home before they learn English at school. Okay. We're going to pretend I've done that for everything. I don't want to go through everything because I'm running short on time. Do I have some sentence variety? Have I got at least one simple sentence, at least one compound sentence, and at least one complex sentence? Now, it would be better to have, say, 2 of each, right? The higher up you go in school, the more likely you're going to find yourself using compound sentences and complex sentences and not using simple sentences as much, especially because we're talking about opinions. And so often opinion, you're kind of saying, I think this because that. I think this should happen in order for that to happen. So you're almost always writing very compound or complex sentences just because you're stating an opinion. So it's not the end of the universe if you didn't have a single simple sentence, okay? But just kind of quickly going through. This is a long simple sentence, but it is technically a simple sentence. Compound. That's not compound. This is a complex. If you'd seen the tears of the anxiety of some children at being forced into a room of strangers, you might not think it was a good idea. It's complex. It's a bit wordy, but it's complex. And compound. I think I've got a run-on sentence down here that I would need to fix. I can probably make a compound sentence out of that. So for example, I've got this, they wouldn't be so bored that they want video games when they get done. And in the wintertime, oops, that becomes very long. No. All right. So I'm going to have to go back and look at this. I need to go through and finish the sentences because they aren't quite right yet. Do I have subject-verb agreement? Subject-verb agreement is when If it's a singular noun, I have a singular verb. Plural noun is a plural verb. That's one thing to check, especially if you find that you're prone to that. Have I used a consistent verb tense throughout the paragraph? A lot of times it's one of those things where we get confused. We'll start talking the present, we'll switch to the past, we'll talk about the future. For a paragraph like this, it's generally better to try and keep it into one tense, either present tense, past tense, or future tense. Have I checked spelling? No, you can see I haven't checked my spelling yet. I would need to kind of hit that. I could easily hit spelling and it would tell me some of my spelling points. Immersion's wrong. Developmentally is wrong. Emotionally is wrong. Fix it again. Oh, that's why, because it went back to my other thing. Sorry. There's no way to make it skip a page. I've tried to do that before. Anyways, and have I checked punctuation? So punctuation and incomplete sentences or run-on sentences kind of go together a little bit. Now, punctuation could be quotation marks, capitalization, what else? Semicolons, colons. But a lot of times, one of the most common punctuation problems is I've used a comma instead of a period. That's the biggest thing. So just looking at this, that is probably the biggest area where I need to go back through and shorten some of these sentences so that they are not run-on sentences. That would be my biggest thing that I see right now that I need to fix. Red flags. These are the things I look for in good copies that kind of set off a little warning bell in my head if I see them. If the good copy looks exactly the same as the rough copy, the only difference is it's been typed, then no changes have been made and I can't mark your revisions because you haven't made any revisions. If your good copy looks completely different than the rough copy and nothing is the same, I also can't mark your revisions because I can't see what you worked on. Okay. So there should be some similarity between the two. Okay. A few minor items have been changed. Maybe you've changed a spelling mistake. Maybe you've changed one piece of punctuation. It's not really as much revising as I'm looking for at this stage. Almost no sentences have been changed. There's no new details or examples. There's no new word choices. Remember we talked about that, how if you had a word that was really boring, like went, you might try and find more interesting words, or a word like said, try and find more interesting words. You only have to do that 2 or 3 times in a paragraph to make the sentence sound way better. Okay, so those are some of the red flags. When I look for those, little warning bells go off in my head. So I'm letting you know that those are things I will specifically be looking at your paragraphs for to see if they're happening, okay? So all of this was just me walking you through the writing process for how to create an opinion piece. But don't forget, your topic is not school at 7. Your topic is there too much violence on TV? Is your opinion or your thoughts or your feelings that yes, there's too much violence, or no, there's not too much violence? And then comment on whether you think the violence affects you or if it affects other people, especially children or young adults, in any way, right? That is a paragraph, one big paragraph, at least 6 sentences, could easily be more, right? Feel free to go longer for 8 or 10 sentences is fine too, right? Don't feel like you can only write 6. You have to write at least 6. Okay. The course did not include a specific rubric for this assignment, but these are the things that I'll be looking for overall on the assignment. That you have stated your opinion really clearly. I should be able to tell whether you're for violence or against it. The reasons for your opinion are very clearly stated. Your reasons have been supported with details or examples or facts. You've followed the paragraph format in both your rough copy and your good copy. Your writing shows an awareness of your audience and your purpose. It shows an appropriate tone and your voice. You have taken some care to use interesting words and phrases. Each sentence is clear and easy to understand. Now, I'm going to highlight this because I think this one is the most important one. And it's the one where often we think that how we wrote is just super clear. But if you ever read your stuff to somebody else, it's really common for them to go, what did you mean? Or That sentence was so long, I kind of lost track of what you were trying to say. That is one of the biggest things, is go back and look and make sure those sentences are clear. A lot of times changing the wording just a little bit can make it a little more understandable. Your writing shows a variety of sentence types. Excellent. Writing shows a good understanding of English grammar. We've had so many discussions about English grammar. Remember that you have to use it. You've avoided slang or short forms, and you've obviously edited for spelling and punctuation errors. Remember that the spell check up here, it does spelling. It doesn't usually show you the grammar that much. I often find it usually just shows like it's very aware of having too many spaces. Okay. So different computer programs may be different, but just be aware a lot of times it will not catch your punctuation errors. You'll have to catch them yourself. And I am going to close with a meme. Our little Yoda here says, everybody thinks differently and everybody's got a right to their own opinion, which of course Yoda would really say, their own opinion, everybody has right to. I just want to assure you, I am not basing your mark on which opinion you have on violence in the media. I have my own opinion, but I don't care which way you go on this. All I'm looking for is how well you can explain your opinion. I'm looking for your writing style, your grammar, your reasoning. Everybody is entitled to your own opinions and your own ideas. And I do not mark you one way or the other. You're not stronger for the one side or weaker for the other. You have an absolute right to your opinion on violence in the media. Okay. I just want to reassure you, you don't have to try and guess what I think and write on that topic. Whichever way you think is fine. I'm just looking at how you write, not what you're writing about. Okay. I hope you found this useful today, and tomorrow we will talk about our next assignment. Thank you so much for showing up today, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow.